Amid the drone of news coverage and the swirl of social media debates, one astonishing detail stands out. That is the leaflets raining down from the sky, carrying a message of urgent evacuation. Instead of relying solely on modern tech or mass broadcast, the Israel Defense Forces have turned to the age-old method of dropping paper messages from airplanes. Now, lives hang in the balance, and time is ticking away. It's a snapshot of a wider story that veers into issues of war ethics, human rights, and the real-time impact of geopolitics on everyday people. So what's really happening, and what will be the results of all this? Without further ado, let's get started. Gaza's fateful Friday. On a calm Friday morning, the skies over Gaza suddenly buzzed with the rumble of Israeli planes. But these weren't bringing the usual menace from above. Instead, a shower of leaflets fluttered down upon the city. It was October 13th, and the Israel Defense Forces had a dire message for the residents. Evacuate your homes and move south. Immediately. The reason? A formidable force of 1/3 soldiers was gathering at the borders, a silent storm of revenge aimed at Hamas for their acts of terror. The IDF was planning a three-pronged assault by land, air, and sea. The message was as clear as the skies: evacuate or face the wrath. As the leaflets painted the city with the urgency of the IDF's message, a new deadline emerged on the horizon: 5 a.m. Saturday. Over 1 million residents of northern Gaza now had less than 24 hours to evacuate their homes and head south. But as the night descended, a shimmer of hope emerged from the shadows of despair. Avice Adrei, the IDF spokesperson for the Arab media, extended a hand of mercy. The deadline was updated, carving a window of safe passage from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. local time on Saturday. The stakes were sky high. Israel was determined to dismantle the grip of Hamas over the Strip, especially after a devastating day, October 7th, marked by the blood of over 1,300 Israelis and a hostage crisis. As the deadline loomed, the skies of Gaza rumbled with the echoes of airstrikes. The blockade tightened, squeezing the breath out of the city with every passing hour, leaving a growing tally of over 1,900 lives lost, as reported. Adrei's statement was a stern echo of the urgency: for your safety, move south. From Beit Hanun to Khan Yunis. The leaflets mirrored this urgency, instructing residents to evacuate. As Saturday morning unfolded, tens of thousands had heeded the call, migrating south from northern Gaza. The UN warned of an unfolding humanitarian crisis as images showed the desperate scramble. People crammed into cars, pickups, and even donkey-pulled carts, carrying whatever they could. The situation at Al-Auda Hospital was a blend of defiance and dedication as the medical staff chose to stay put, as reported by the Turkish news agency Anadolu. Meanwhile, whispers of hope drifted across as the U.S. State Department hinted at the possibility of opening the Rafah crossing into Egypt that afternoon. As the weekend unfolded, the toll of the conflict became increasingly apparent, leaving the people of Gaza grappling with unimaginable challenges. The world watched as the struggle for survival continued amidst a backdrop of geopolitical strife. Struggle for survival. The ripple effects were being felt far and wide. Jordan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ayman Safadi, condemned Israel's actions, stating it was pushing the region to the brink of a wider conflict and violating international law by blocking humanitarian aid to Gaza. Jonathan Shatter, a former advisor to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, painted a grim picture in his comments to Newsweek, indicating a transition into a more severe phase of the war that could reshape the region's fate. This wasn't just a day of urgency, it was a page in history, inked with the hopes, fears, and resilience of the people of Gaza amidst a storm of geopolitical strife. In the wake of Hamas-led attacks, the skies of Gaza have roared with the fury of retaliatory Israeli airstrikes. The wrath from above has left more than 2,400 souls bereaved of life's breath. As the sun rose on a grim Saturday, the Gaza Health Ministry unveiled a harrowing tally: over 700 of the dead were mere children. The blockade stands as a wall, halting the flow of much-needed aid into the desperate arms of Gazans. The United Nations voices its condemnation, branding these measures as collective punishment. While the Israeli forces contend their wrath from the skies targets the assets of Hamas, the storm of explosives raining upon the densely populated enclaves brings foreseeable devastation upon the innocent. Though aimed at the shadows of terror, the strikes cast a long, dark veil of dread over the civilians, raising turbulent waves of questions on the specter of unlawfully indiscriminate attacks. The narrow strip of Gaza, home to over 2.2 million hearts, mirrors the physical expanse of Philadelphia, yet its soul bears the scars of ceaseless conflict. Here, children embodying the hope of tomorrow make up almost half of the populace, yet their world is hemmed in by fences, walls, and a vigilant watch of the Israeli Navy upon Gaza's waters. The daunting task of evacuating over 1 million souls from this dense enclave is intensified as the gates to Egypt and Israel remain sealed. The roads to refuge in the overcrowded homes of kin in southern Gaza are laden with rubble, while fuel grows scarce. For the elderly, disabled, and the ailing nestled in hospital beds, the call for evacuation rings hollow. As the desperate exodus unfolded, tens of thousands braved the perilous journey from northern Gaza along the paths charted by the Israeli military. Yet the heavens continue to rain fury as airstrikes and rockets show no mercy. Amidst the chaos, 70 lives, mostly women and children, were snuffed out as they sought sanctuary, the Palestinian Health Ministry recounted. The heart of Gaza's medical hope, Al-Shifa Hospital, now stands besieged by a torrent of over 9,000 wounded Palestinians. Its halls, once a haven of healing, now echo with the cries of despair as evacuation remains a distant dream. Now, the solemn dictate of international humanitarian law, the laws of war, cast a long shadow over this theater of conflict. International humanitarian concerns. The evacuation order in Gaza struck a harsh chord, echoing 3 distinct concerns under the umbrella of international humanitarian law. Firstly, in the theater of war, the bellow of caution to civilians is not just a gesture of goodwill, but a mandate inked in the laws of war. Yet when the call to evacuate resonates through the alleys of Gaza, it bounces off walls, leading to nowhere safe. With no secure passage to tread and a safe haven, a distant dream, the warning morphs into a hollow echo. The civilians left in limbo don't forfeit the protective shield of international law by choosing the lesser evil, staying put amidst the brewing storm, or venturing into a perilous unknown. Secondly, the laws of war strictly rebuke threats veiled as warnings, especially when their core aim is to sow seeds of terror among civilians. The evacuation order, sweeping in its demand and bleak in offering a safe alternative, raises a cloud of doubt. Is it a genuine call to safety or a tactic to instill fear? The words of an Israeli Defense Forces spokesman labeling the evacuees as making a clever choice further fuels concerns. The underlying message is what fate awaits those who stay. Thirdly, the ghost of forced displacement looms large, a grim specter evoking the memories of a painful exodus in 1948. Around 70% of Gaza's populace are refugees, or descendants of those who once fled their hearths in what is now Israel. The call to evacuate to Egypt, made by Israeli officials, is a harsh reminder of a past exodus, stirring fears of a history threatening to repeat itself. At the heart of this dire scenario, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres calls out the evacuation order's harsh reality. The demand to evacuate hundreds of thousands on a tightrope of time, with no safe haven in sight, is a recipe for humanitarian catastrophe. His words resonate with international and humanitarian agencies, shedding light on a bleak picture. The U.S. administration, a significant ally with a hefty annual military aid of $3.8 billion to Israel, now finds itself at a crossroad of conscience. The call is loud and clear. to urge the Israeli government to retract the evacuation order, unblock the humanitarian aid lifeline to Gaza, and uphold the sacred obligation to protect civilians, including those stranded in northern Gaza. So now, what do you think are the ethical implications of using air leaflets for urgent evacuation notices in modern warfare? Comment down below, and see you in the next video.